All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous Jonesy and Brown show. Good Lord, I haven't used this program in so long. The program we use to record this show. So I'm trying to like learn it on the fly because it's been so long since we've did. Why did we take such a long hiatus, man?
I mean, it's a lot going on, family stuff. The Eagles lost the Super Bowl. Who wants to talk about that?
Yeah, they did. How did you feel? Not. I mean,
the last show we
lost.
did was our pre-Super Bowl show, I believe.
Yes.
So we've had 2 months off. About that.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how bad that loss hurt us. Took us 2 months to get back into the swing of things, to get back into the process of doing shows, recording shows. That loss sucked, man. I will tell you this. I tried my hardest to be optimistic, to say, hey, you know what? Yes, losing the Super Bowl sucks. There's no participation trophies. There's no moral victories, whatever. Push all that aside. I tried my hardest not to let that loss put me into doom and gloom. We got a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We have a GM who, at the very least, has earned the benefit of the doubt and has earned a level of patience to say, hey, you know what? We will probably lose a couple players this offseason.
All right, so I'm glad you said that.
We're gonna gain some players this offseason.
I'm glad you said that because you lost Hargrove.
Lost him, yes.
Very productive D lineman.
Yes.
You lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who finished the year tied for the league lead in interceptions.
Yes.
And let's see. Yeah, who else was lost? Is that or the only major? We lost a couple linebackers. TJ Edwards
and White. Edwards and White.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this.
So you've got some losses.
And I see where you're going with this. So let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump in the Wayback Machine to last offseason. Mm-hmm. You saw the moves that they made. Mm-hmm. Bringing in Bradbury, bringing in Gardner-Johnson. Did you think then that a year later we'd be sitting here wondering, how can we replace Gardner-Johnson? Did you think that he would come that he would play a role so big in this team that we'd be saying, how can we replace him?
Well, when they brought him in, it was later in the offseason last year when they brought him in.
Pretty late. Yeah, Gardner-Johnson was a pretty late sign.
But when they did, when we looked at the rest of the pieces around the roster,
yes,
and we looked at the little we did know about his skill set and ability from what we had seen of him in New Orleans,
mm-hmm.
I won't say we knew, but we suspected there was a pretty good chance he would fit in with what the Eagles were doing.
Mm-hmm. But it was still do you think it was still a pretty low risk, high reward signing?
Considering that you gave up, a 4th round pick for him that you're going to get back in compensatory picks. And we talked about this at the time. Yes. It was extremely low risk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the part that hurts. It's once he got here and you saw the productivity and you saw the fit, the question then becomes, if he's only 25 years old and fits, why start the search all over again? Considering because I say that with the caveat where we have to consider the Eagles' track record in finding productive safety play.
But would you say that, we have been hard on Howie Roseman on this show in the past?
Absolutely.
We've been critical, and I don't think we've been unfairly critical either.
No, any criticism he's gotten was well deserved.
Yes, we praised him when praise was due. We criticized him in times he needed to be criticized. But I guess for me, I hear what you're saying in the sense that once he got here, given his age and the level he was able to play, that it would have been conducive. It would have been a good move to try and lock him up, try and keep him around. However, when I look at the moves that Howie Roseman has made over the last year or so, 2 years or so, to me, I want to see what he does. I want to see how this off season plays out. To me, I'm willing to be patient because, like I said, look.
So Howie's earned your trust.
He's earned my trust, but honestly, it's we're not locking into any position. I can get off this bandwagon anytime I want. It's not like I'm going to sit here and just be on the Howie bandwagon no matter what happens. If it starts to go south, I will jump in front of the same microphone, in front of the same camera, talk to the same people, and we can criticize Howie Roseman.
Now, you once told me that a radio man gave you the advice of pick a take and stick with it.
And this might be why we're not on the radio.
You're flying in the face of that advice.
Yeah, I am, because that person is still on the radio, still has a show, pretty popular amongst radio people. And we're still doing the podcast thing. We're still doing our own thing. People respect us. People like us. But it's like, look, in the end, it's like, I feel like we can just like I said, we criticize them when it comes time for criticism. Praise them when it's time for praise. Right now, I feel like you look at the moves that he made and the fact that when we were doing shows last April, we weren't talking about a Super Bowl. We weren't talking about a team that could be a Super Bowl contender. We still weren't sure about Jalen Hurts. We still weren't sure about Nick Sirianni. Yeah, he made it to the playoffs, but that was still a 9-17 that got smacked in the playoffs.
That is all true. Also, post-draft, we going into training camp and into the season, we also knew if Jalen Hurts improved, the rest of the roster, by the time we saw the final product, we knew that if Hurts made the improvement, the rest of the roster was good enough to make a run.
Yeah,
we knew that going into the season.
We knew that there were weapons. We knew that this wasn't just a fluke playoff team, but still, we didn't know that they could be as good as we thought they were going to be. We didn't think they would jump out to 8 straight wins.
Nobody saw that, but I think we all thought we could at least win the division, go somewhere in that with 17 games, 10 to 12 wins, and win the division. Now, it turned out that with a soft schedule, that turned into 14 wins. But, I think we all had at least some level of confidence they were going to be in the division race. At bare minimum, looking at schedule and personnel, we thought they could be in the division race. That being said, and I'm going to have to ask you to dig into your memory banks for a second.
Okay.
If you recall the conversations you, our friend Javon Alford, and I would have going through last offseason, pre and post draft, we pretty much watched Howie Roseman make every move that we wanted to see him make. And the path was much more visible. The path at this point, you're looking at things like Jalen Hurts' contract is due, and they've got to make sure they have money available for that. And guys, quarterbacks are asking for guaranteed money now. And we see how Lamar is going, and how big of a number is Jalen really going to want. And if he goes from $1 million a year to $50 million a year, how much more talent are they going to lose? And yeah, your offense is going to be locked up, but then what's your defense going to look like? Like, these are real questions. And let's be fair, the offense in the Super Bowl was not the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, they did account for the only turnover of the game. And that turnover directly led to 7 points.
Yep.
Which was the difference in the game.
The difference in the game, yep.
But their defense did nothing.
Especially in the second half.
Especially in the second half.
Especially in the second half when they needed a play. When you needed a turnover, you needed something to turn that game around. The defense did not provide it. And then you look at that defense, and you look at losing Gardner Johnson, losing your 2 starting linebackers. Granted, yes, we can all talk about the fact that this team never truly valued, throwing up the air quotes,
linebackers. You have Nakobe Dean sitting there waiting to play.
Yep.
But if defense was already the problem, and you're already fully invested on your offense, and it's about to be an even bigger investment on your offense, do you think this defense is going to be able to do the job?
Honestly, I don't know, and that is
this a year where Howie's going to have to draft all defense?
It's funny you say that, but it's like I can't see that ever happen. I can't see that ever happening.
Okay, all defense and an O lineman.
That I could see. I could
one
see.
O lineman and the rest defense. How we could do that?
Yeah. But you also know how he operates. We were talking. This time last year we were talking about the Eagles with what, 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, they started with 3, I believe.
Started with 3, and no one saw A.J. Brown coming.
No one saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. So it's like you see how this general manager operates.
He's aggressive. He takes risks.
So we sit here and we look at the map to the offseason. We say, hey, there hasn't been a lot of free agency movement yet. They have not brought in a lot, those big name free agents yet. The draft is still 3-4 weeks away. You don't know who's going to be a late off-season cut that they could bring in that could help this team. And you know that there is a traditional roadmap to next season, and then you have a general manager who doesn't necessarily follow that roadmap. So we could sit here in the beginning of April and say, who is he going to bring in? Who is he going to draft? Who could he sign? Who could he re-sign? Who could he trade? And then in 3 weeks, when it comes time to actually put the plan into action, go completely left. We were talking about who he could draft with all those picks that he had last year. The next thing you know, he uses one of those picks to make probably one of the biggest moves in the offseason by bringing in A.J. Brown.
He used one of those picks to bring in a player at a position we were thinking he could draft. And then the rest of the way, he pretty much followed the script, drafted all the players we wanted. Well, at least all players I wanted.
Because when you think about it, and this is something that we also talked about, we knew that there was room for improvement in that wide receiver room. But we had also said that had the Eagles gone into last season with Devontae Smith as their number 1 wide receiver, that wouldn't have been the biggest of our issues.
No, but at that point felt like they probably should have drafted another receiver if they did go that route.
But nonetheless, there was a level of comfort with Devontae Smith being the number one wide receiver going into
Agreed,
next season.
but there was a known need for another receiver. So let's balance it. We were comfortable if Devontae had to play the number one, but then we knew we needed a number two. Nobody wanted Quez as number two.
True. But like I said, we were comfortable with the number one. We knew we needed a solid. We knew if we went in with the current number one, with that being Devontae Smith, that we would need a solid number two. What did they do? They went out and got a bona fide number one and moved the guy that we were prepared to have as number one slide to number two, and the guy that we didn't want as number two slide to number three, and that gave us a whole lot more comfort.
Absolutely.
So, but I say all of this to say the moves like that have me saying, you know what, let's let this man work. I want to see what he does.
Okay, so giving Fletcher Cox $10 million makes you comfortable.
I don't think necessarily giving Fletcher Cox $10 million with the deal that he has necessarily handcuffs him. I don't like if there's not a move.
I'm asking.
A guy. Are you asking? Are you asking me? Am I cool with that?
I'm asking. Because you're saying give Howie some room, give him some trust. So based on the moves we've seen so far, we've seen him give a guy who's clearly on the decline $10 million. That's a lot of money for a defensive tackle who's on the way down. We've seen him decide to keep both Bradbury and Slay and let Gardner Johnson go, who's a less expensive player than either corner, when you're in a position in the draft where you easily could have drafted a number two corner and let one of either Bradbury or Slay go. I mean, there are things there to question. I'm not saying Howie's done a terrible job, but there are fair questions to ask.
No, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But like I said, at this point, I don't have a huge problem with it. Let it play out. I'm cool with that. I'm not going to. And honestly, like I said, I reserve the right to come back here and act like I didn't say that this week. And be like, man, Fletcher Cox is absolutely overpaid. Howie absolutely he blew it. I reserve the right to do that.
Let's make sure we save this tape from.
Save it. You know me. I don't delete tweets. All our archives are still there. You can watch it. You can see it. It's there. They'll be there. So right now, I'm cool.
Running back, you brought in Rashad Penny, who's been productive when he plays, but doesn't play a whole lot because he gets hurt. So now that you have that running back, does that take you out of the running back draft? I mean, what kind of things are we talking about here?
Real quick, shout out to Javon All for watching. So the crazy part is Cox had a larger offer on table. Good news about Cox is the money is off the books next year.
That is true. Cox's money is off the books next year. Yeah. Could have been off the books this year.
Yeah, true. Keep a veteran. Keep a veteran. Hope that players like Davis develop, and then you won't need Cox as much.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see. Draft's coming up.
I think I felt better this time last year than I do this time this year. And that's really what it is. At this point last season, I didn't say I feel bad. I said I felt better this time last year. And that's even after, and that's including knowing the leap Hurts made as a quarterback. I still felt better last year this time.
No, man. I think I disagree. I think I feel There was a part of me that was afraid that last year's playoff run was fool's gold. There was a part of me that felt like with these sports now, and you're seeing it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
You've now seen it in the NBA where they're expanding their playoffs, and it's like it wasn't necessarily because all these leagues have a whole bunch of good teams that you need to just expand the playoffs so more good teams can play. I was afraid that when you opened up the playoffs for more teams, you were going to end up with a team that would not have made the playoffs come into the playoffs and look like a team that didn't deserve to be in the playoffs.
That was the Eagles in Nick Sirianni's first year.
Yes, that was the Eagles. So they had their playoff run. They went and they played a real playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay whooped their behinds.
And they got cooked. So it's like, okay, what happens now? Because you're sitting there and honestly, and think back, and I'm not trying to take you there, but just allow me to go there for a brief second. You yourself don't have to stay here long, but let me take you here for a brief second. You remember what happened to the Eagles the very first year of that guy in between Doug and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
You remember what happened his very first season and what they were able to do. Yes. And you remember what happened to that same team the 2 following seasons before that guy was shown the door.
I think that's a bad comparison.
Well,
I think a better the reason I say that the better comparison would be the first year of Doug Peterson. And the reason I think that's a better comparison is because if you look at the bones of that team, the cores of those teams, like the Doug Peterson team, the Nick Sirianni team, excuse me, both those teams were built to be really strong up the middle on both sides of the ball. The other guy's team, the defense went from a 4-3 to a 3-4 without having a real nose tackle or any of the personnel, without having the linebackers. So you're going to be soft up the middle. You're going to get gutted by the run. And then you're running how many offensive plays a game, which means your defense is on the field all the time. So by week 12, they're exhausted. When they hired that guy, I had questions from the start. 'Cause I'm like, his system is a college system that works when you have 90 players. How's that work in the league? The other guys, we knew they were NFL guys. So I don't like that comparison to that one guy who went to San Francisco, then back to college.
No, I understand. But I think it was more along the lines of the results. Whereas that guy comes in and immediately takes the team to the playoffs only to never get back again.
No, I understand what you're saying.
And I guess my fear last season was like, okay, was this an improved team, or was this a team that took advantage of now opening up the schedule and allowing more teams?
But that's exactly what I mean, though. When you look at the team from Sirianni's first year, 9-7, kind of snuck into the playoffs at the end. But when you look at how that team was built, the O-line was, you knew, the best in the league, and nobody was not solid. They were the best in the league, and nobody was going anywhere. You knew that.
So they're not solid, or you saying they were better than solid?
They were better than just solid. They were the best O-line in the league. Because by the end of that year, you knew Mailata was a player. You knew Dickerson was a player. You knew who Kelsey was. You knew who Johnson was. And Sayamalu held his own at the right guard spot. You had so you knew you had the best O-line in the league at that year. You knew you at least had a legit guy who could play your number one receiver. You knew you still had Slay, who could still produce at corner. You knew you still had guys on your D line that could produce, and you were walking into that offseason with so many picks in the future that even if Hurts didn't make the jump, you're still in a good situation building going forward because of what was coming in the following QB classes. You just keep building your roster.
Gotcha.
So at the end of that year, I knew I was looking at a team that was on the way up.
Okay. Now, moving forward, this team right now, this quarterback right now, let's just say, and let's start small. Let's say NFC. Top three quarterback in the NFC.
Currently,
top three. Yeah, currently.
Today, I go top three.
Top three. Okay.
That's a
best in the division easily.
Based on last season.
Yes.
Not based on career, because Hurts was a starter for 2 years. His first one wasn't that great. His second one was amazing. So based on last season, yeah, he's a top 3 NFC, top of the NFC East quarterback.
Okay. All right.
At this moment.
Okay. What does this team need to do? You said you felt a little bit more comfortable going into last season than you did this season. What do they need to do? What do they need to do to build that confidence? What would make you feel better?
Last year, there were a couple things that made me feel good. One of them was Howie Roseman addressed the linebacker position fairly early. You knew you had guys like Kazir White coming in. You knew you had those guys. So that in itself, knowing we had linebackers, made me feel better.
Okay.
Knowing that you had Hargrave, Cox, Graham, all those guys on the D line, and you were likely bringing in another one. Like, you had, going into that draft, 3 first-round picks, plus a team with very solid bones on both lines. So you knew you had the potential to add a lot of weapons. You weren't going into a situation where you needed a running back. You had one. You knew you had a 1 or 2 receiver in a slot. You needed to add another one in your top 2, but you knew you had 2 of those 3 positions covered. You knew you needed some secondary help. But at that point, you actually thought that's probably something we'll draft and be okay.
So you knew basically. So basically, you're saying they got a lot of work to make you comfortable?
I'm not saying it's a lot of work, but I think the margin of error is smaller this year. Like Howie Roseman's margin of error is a little smaller this year because last year, let's be real, a large part of it was being able to bank on the fact that Jalen Hurts is making less than $1 million a year. When you have Hurts' contract looming over you, you don't have the same money to just throw around and bring in everybody. It's a whole different story when you're saying, oh, well, we'll go to the draft who we can, and then we have all the money out there that we want to sign everybody else.
What do you think of that whole Lamar Jackson thing?
But before we move on, I want people to be aware of something. Last year, the Eagles spent less than $15 million on all of their skill position players on offense, including the quarterback. Like, A.J. Brown got the extension, but it hadn't kicked in yet because he was still on the last year of his deal from Tennessee that he got traded on. His cap number was $1 million. Devonta Smith was on his rookie deal. Quez Watkins on a rookie deal as a late round pick. Zach Pascal was a late free agency addition who didn't make much money. So you got the tight end, Dallas Goedert, making decent money. And then Miles Sanders on the last year of his deal as a second-round pick, and a quarterback who's a second-round pick. You've got a lot of money to throw around at the rest of the roster last year when your starting skill position players combine for less than 10% of the salary cap. That's not the case anymore. A.J. Brown's extension is kicked in. You've got to have money cleared because for Hurts. You're looking at thinking about what you're doing with Devonta Smith long term. Going into his third year, he's eligible for extension after this year as well. You can't tie up that kind of money anymore. So these are things where Howie just has a smaller margin of error.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it's not that I think the team is bad or they're in trouble. That margin of error is slim. So you got to get these moves right.
Yeah.
That's why I felt better this time last year.
Understood. And I get that. And I guess for me, once again, it goes to, this is a level of trust that Howie has earned so far. And that's not to say that he can't screw this up. He could. Well,
he absolutely could.
Yeah, he could. And if he did, then we would criticize him. We could go right back and say, hey, I remember when Jonesy said you needed to do A, B, and C. When you needed to do that, instead you did it D, E, F. You did H, I, J. That could happen. That could very well happen. You just got to wait and see. I just think, like, I'm not, unlike the past. And in the past, we've made do or die out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to the off season, we need all these moves. I did Roy Burton's podcast a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Roy. And I said, at the time, I'm like, for March, I'm good. There have been times in the past where we've sat there, we've looked at moves, and it'll be crazy because you'll look up at the calendar, you'll see February, you'll see March, and you're like, you'll see other teams making moves, and whether or not the Eagles necessarily have made the right moves or made any moves, you're sitting there and you just feel like it's not enough. And I'm saying for right now, for April 6th, as we sit here and talk on April 6th, I'm good. That could change. That could not change. Let me see what happens. But real quick, I wanted to get your opinion because we talked about having a quarterback who is in line for a slight pay raise.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quarterback 2 hours down the road seems to be getting into it with his current employer.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, before we move off football, I wanted to get your opinion of that and how you think it might affect the Eagles, if it would affect the Eagles at all.
Do you really want to know how I feel about this?
Why would you do that, man? Are we married? What kind of question is that?
Because I don't think you really want to know how I feel about this.
Why?
I don't. All right, fine. But don't tell me you ain't want to hear this when I'm done saying it. I think the Ravens are doing the right thing. And if they'd have been idiots to give Lamar Jackson what he wants. You've got a guy who's had limited to, let's be honest, no playoff success as a late first round pick. He's improved as a passer, but he's still erratic. And he wants somewhere in that area of $50 million a year fully guaranteed. And he's been injured at the end of the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. At the end of this year, he missed several games. I'm not giving him that kind of guaranteed money. You tell me that you want that kind of money, I'm going to do exactly the same thing the Ravens did. Transition tag, you find somebody else to give you that, more power to him. So I'm not even matching it. More power to him, give me the 2 first rounders.
Real quick, shout out to Javon Alford, always supportive of the show. He said, blame the Browns for setting that precedent at QB. Yeah, they gave their QB
I agree. The Browns set a really bad precedent. And I think what you're seeing in the Lamar Jackson situation is a overcorrection. Not only are the Ravens saying we're not doing it, all the other franchises are saying, well, you're on your own because we're not doing it either. We're not giving you that and giving up 2 first-round picks. Like, other team, like who was in the Colts, Jim Irsay says, I don't believe in fully guaranteed contracts. He just flat out said he doesn't believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing a market correction the other way. Whether or not anybody came out and said it, ownership and GMs, man, the front offices were mad about that Deshaun Watson contract. You gave a guy who basically sat out 2 years, $250 million fully guaranteed. And I get it. You're Cleveland. Nobody wants to come there. You were desperate for a quarterback, so they did what they had to do as the Browns. But nah, nobody else wants to do that. No, nobody.
So let me ask you this, and we will transition this back to the Eagles.
If Jalen Hurts wants that fully guaranteed contract, I'd do the same thing.
No, first of all, would you consider the Browns giving all that money to Deshaun Watson?
Stupid.
Is that the Browns browning?
Yes.
Because you know what I say about the Browns every year.
Mm-hmm.
Browns going brown.
Exactly.
That's the Browns browning. That's a bad move. Okay, I mean, now, getting back to the Eagles, I'm not going to say, because you told me, you said, do you really want to know what I want to think? You know, you're going to don't get mad.
The reason I said that is because I'd move Jalen Hurts out too if he wants $50 million or fully guaranteed money. I'm trading him too. I'm not giving any quarterback that kind of money unless you have the potential to literally be the best quarterback in the league. And as much as I love Hurts, he ain't Mahomes.
That's the bridge I would cross when I get there. I'm not mad at you for saying
we're there now. He's negotiating the contract. We're there.
When I'm saying he comes out and says, "Hey, I need X amount of money guaranteed," where we now know, not speculating if he wants it, if he asked for it. We're not playing the what ifs game. I'm saying if we come out here and we know he's saying, "I want Deshaun Watson money," or "I want X amount of dollars guaranteed," saying no, not if, not heard, no, then I would be like, yeah, man, shut up. I don't want to hear you. I want to hear your mouth. I'm not saying, I wouldn't say you were wrong, but I would say, shut up, man. I don't want to.
I mean, even if it's not fully guaranteed, I don't think he's worth $40-45 million a year. There are very few quarterbacks I do think are worth that.
Worth that much money.
Very few. Ever. I mean, most of these guys getting this big money, what happened? Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, every other year, they're renegotiating their deals so they're the top paid dudes.
Yeah.
What's happened to them since they were on their rookie deals? Neither one of them sniffed winning anything.
Yeah, and I find that funny.
As great as both of them have been talked about being.
And the thing about it is, I feel like all that is selective memory. Because whenever you see the public discourse about breaking off a quarterback, you throw out the quarterbacks who renegotiate their deals to free up more cap space. You talk about Russell Wilson. You talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Oh no, they didn't. Hold on, time out. They didn't renegotiate to free up more cap space. They renegotiated to make sure they stayed the highest paid.
But doesn't that also free up more cap space?
No, because they weren't freeing up cap space. They wanted more money. Like an extension, Tom Brady renegotiated to free up more cap space. That's not what Aaron Rodgers is doing.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers just wants more money.
Okay. So then let's focus on Tom Brady then. You use Tom Brady as an example because once he started renegotiating his contract, that's what got it kind of propelled the Patriots back into that top of the league.
Oh, it's not kind of what did it. That's absolutely what did it.
But the fact of the matter
is, they won their first 3 on his rookie deal, and then there was a 10-year gap. Where he's making top money. And then he started taking the pay cuts, and they started winning again.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. That people forget that 10-year gap in between championships. they kind of squeeze the first three and the last three.
Last four.
What I'm saying is, I'm just talking about Patriots. Tom Brady.
Okay.
The first when he was actively renegotiating deals, they squeeze those together. Like the 10 years in between them
never happened.
So like, oh, why isn't Tom Brady? Because the top ranked quarterback and not winning championships. So when you see a quarterback, it's like, no, I mean, I get your point, and I am not saying that your point is wrong, Mike Jones. In that, I understand why you're saying, you know what, these teams should not give out this level of guaranteed money. However, from the player's perspective, it's like, okay, you got to get that money first before these players are looking to get that money before they start thinking about renegotiating.
Here's my question. So a guy like Jalen Hurts, his style of play, he runs a lot. He was injured, banged up at the end of this year. He banged up at the end of last year. Do you think he has a 10-year window to make big money and then still come back as a pocket passer at the end and get you more wins?
I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not.
But if you're
Tom Brady, hold on, because hear me out. Because Tom Brady did that, but he had another 10 years at the back end because all he did was stand still and throw darts. That's not who Jalen Hurts is.
I understand.
His game exposes him to risk. So if I'm the team, I don't have 10 years for him to wait to figure out it's better for the team to take less money.
I got you. But the fact still remains, Jalen Hurts understands that he understands that his window is not, he doesn't have a large window either.
Agreed.
And since there isn't normally a lot of guaranteed money in pro football, he's got to get what he can when he can. So he's going to do what he has to do. And you just hope that what he wants and what he does while he does it is not something that is too much for the Eagles to acquiesce to.
All right.
To say,
question for you as a fan.
Okay.
What's more important to you? The front of the player's jersey or the back?
Front.
Okay.
Front.
So if the front of the jersey is more important, are you hoping that which would be your line of thought? That what happens works in the best interest of the team, or that a player you like gets all the money he can get, which is most likely going to be bad for the team?
I don't believe that it has to be one or the other.
It has to be. This is football. It's not basketball or baseball.
No,
this is
I'm saying. I'm
explain myself because you said the reason I say it has to be. I'll be real quick. Is because you have a hard salary cap. Paying the player more doesn't make the player better. So your ceiling is at such a point, but I'm paying you above that point because you're getting 30% of the cap when you're worth 15. Anything above 15%, I'm wasting money. That's how you have to look at it in a hard cap sport.
So are you saying that there's no way for the Eagles to give Jalen Hurts up a respectable deal? Now, I'm not saying no hometown discount. There's no way a deal that can be worked that both sides are happy. They have to underpay Jalen Hurts.
All right. We're going into the 23 season, right?
Yes.
In 2023, the NFL salary cap is set to be $22.48 million. 10% of that would have you at 22.5 million. You're at $2. 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% 10% won above 15% of the cap.
Mm-hmm.
Ever as a cap hit. So if they could find a creative way to give Hurts his money and keep him the way the money's going, you can't even keep a guy under 10% and pay him, which is why I don't like these deals unless this guy is literally an all-time great quarterback. Because if once you're at over 10%, what you're looking at is guys named Favre, Manning, Breeze, got the guys like that, all-time great guys. If you're not one of those guys, paying you that kind of money might be good for ticket sales, might be good for TV ratings because there's a narrative to sell.
Yep.
But if we're actually talking about winning in the playoffs, the numbers say it doesn't pan out too well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're might be in a bad division where there are not a lot of good quarterbacks, but you're talking about Kyler Murray and Danny Dimes money, those dudes got overpaid.
Okay.
Those rosters.
So Danny Dimes got
look what happened to the Cardinals recently. They look good to you last year?
No.
You think they feel good about what Kyler Murray's getting right now?
No. Is Jalen Hurts better than Kyler Murray?
Yes.
So Jalen Hurts is better than Kyler Murray, but you don't want to pay him more than Kyler Murray.
All right. Kyler Murray. Right, so this is what I'm saying. So he deserves to be paid more than Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray is overpaid. If Kyler Murray were making what Kyler Murray deserved, then yeah, Jalen Hurts deserves more than that. But Kyler Murray's making way more than Kyler Murray deserves.
So Jalen Hurts does not make you don't believe that the Eagles should give Jalen Hurts more than what Kyler Murray gets right now?
No.
Okay. Jared Allen, $43 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that means no or yes.
And Josh Allen, regardless of whether or not he's overpaid, I don't think Kyler. I don't think Jalen Hurts deserves more money than Josh Allen.
Okay. I said Jared Allen. I'm bugging.
Right now, the two guys in the league that I would actually give that kind of money to are Mahomes and Burrow. That's it.
And Jalen Hurts is not either of those guys.
He's not either of those guys.
Okay. All right.
Josh Allen's not. He's close. Like, they're that next tier down. Like, they deserve some money. But I personally don't feel like you deserve to be the highest paid unless you're the best.
Going back to something that you said before when you talked about elite quarterbacks. Elite is Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow?
In the current NFL, yeah.
Current NFL, right now.
Right now.
Not all time, not, total body of work. I'm talking about from 2000, the end of 2020. The
21-22 season, or the 22 season, the Super Bowl went into 23. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair Mahomes enough. And Burrow, the only two guys I would pay that kind of money to.
Fair enough.
Mahomes, he's the proven winner, and Burrow has proven he can lift the offense and make it better without having all the weapons around him. He's had some receivers, but his offensive line, terrible. So he could do things to elevate his offense. So you don't have to have the same type of, like, I might be able to skimp on some positions. Like, okay, this guy can work with a bad O-line. So I don't have to have the Eagles O-line to be successful with Burrow. And so I can those two guys I would pay. They've shown me enough, like, they can lift their team. They actually, like, and then another thing I want from a quarterback to pay that much, and there aren't really that many guys in the league that do this right now. Not just have a strong arm or throw a good deep ball, like guys who can literally throw a receiver open. That's not a phrase you even hear a lot these days. But to be able to throw like that accuracy, timing, and to throw a receiver open where he's covered, but because of where the quarterback put the ball, he's not really covered.
where all he can do is catch. Only one person can catch it. No, I
So,
understand.
like, there's some guys who are good at putting the ball up where the receiver has a chance to go up and compete and out jump the receiver and things like that. And then there are quarterbacks who just drop it in there where nobody else had a chance.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yep.
those are the guys that are worth the big money to me. And it's not a lot of them.
All right. I hear you. Dude, we got to pivot because I thought we were only going to spend like a half hour on the Eagles, and we ended up spending like 50 minutes on the Eagles.
All right, so we got 10 minutes for Sixers and Phillies. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Sixers and Phillies. Let me ask you something. Do you care about the MVP race?
No.
No.
It's the only
have you
okay.
ever cared about it? Has that ever been important to you?
Before the game became analytics, yes.
Okay.
But once the voters, like these new voters with everything being analytics, not as much.
So you do believe that the eye test has been devalued?
It's absolutely been devalued.
Okay.
I absolutely believe that. So the MVP means a little less to me. The one thing that I do care about is that I don't want to see Jokic win it 3 times in a row because of what that means historically. Like, you look at the guys who have won 3 MVPs, like, period, not just 3 in a row, won 3 MVPs, period. You're talking about some of the best players of all time. Yeah. And he's not that.
Yeah.
He's not, nobody even thinks he's the best player right in the league right now. So for that reason and that reason alone, I don't want to see Jokic win it. But if I'm being objective, I would also say that of the past 3 seasons, including this one, this is probably Jokic's best argument for MVP because his team is actually winning at the highest clip. And that, as you know, for us, our generation coming up was one of the most important factors is that you're not just putting up empty numbers. You're putting up those numbers on a team that's winning at a high clip.
Yes.
So, you know, if you were putting up big numbers on the 8th, 9th seed back then, you weren't even thought about for MVP votes because people back then knew the easiest way to inflate stats in basketball is to play bad basketball. But remember I said that. The easiest way to inflate basketball stats is to play bad basketball. And I'll give you a quick example. Michael Carter Williams and the Sixers. You remember his rookie year? How bad that team was? And how good everybody thought Carter Williams was because he got triple-double his first game and averaged near a triple-double? Was that because he was that great? Or was it because he was the best player on a terrible team? So he got to have the ball and do too much. You see what I mean?
No, I got you. I got you. So that being said, I understand it's not that important to you. However, do you believe that Joel Embiid has done enough to win the MVP?
Absolutely. Absolutely, he's done enough to win it. The one person I would make I'd say is a legit argument is not Jokic for me this year. It's Giannis.
Yeah.
Like, he goes under the radar because it's so consistent and so expected from him what he does.
Yeah, I think Giannis has kind of approached. It's kind of reached, and he's kind of reached that Jordan, Kobe, LeBron level where he's been so good for so long.
Like 25, 8 and 7 for Giannis is no big deal.
Yeah, where it's like every year you could have given Jordan the MVP. Every year you could have given Kobe the MVP. And and when we think about it over the scale of his work, what do we talk about with Kobe during his prime when he was putting up the biggest numbers? Steve Nash wins 2 straight MVPs.
Exactly.
And it's like. And now as you look back at it, it's because Kobe was so good and, he was so locked in, it almost wasn't a big deal. It's like, here's Giannis. This is just Giannis being Giannis. And the Bucks are where they've been for
and they're the number one and they're the number one seed, and right now they've got it locked up.
Yeah, so they're the number one seed. That's Giannis being Giannis. They're just doing, it's not, they're so good it's not exciting anymore.
So yeah, if you told me Giannis won the MVP, I'm like, man, I wish Embiid got it, but I can't be mad at that.
Yeah. Which would make you madder if you got madder? Would it be Jokic or Giannis?
Jokic for sure.
Okay.
Because one, I think Embiid's the better player than Jokic. And two, you give this guy, like I said, if you give this guy 3 MVPs in a row, so all your analytics and stat guys that are running around not understanding the game these days,
you're gonna have.
We'll be talking about your Joker was the best big ever. That's what we'll be hearing, and that's what we'll be hearing in 10 years.
Bunch of TikTok videos about Jokic was better than Shaq. Shaq never won 3 straight MVPs.
Y'all didn't understand how good Jokic was. He's better. Like Shaq didn't win 3 MVPs. Shaq didn't average 8 assists. But Shaq was better. We're back to that thing where that eye test matters.
No. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So let me ask you this question then, sir. We're coming to the end of the 2022-2023 regular season. Has this Philadelphia 76ers team shown you anything to make you believe that they can get past the second round?
All right. So I'm going to check the standings before I answer that question. And I already know the answer, but I'm going to tell you why. That's why I'm checking the standings. The number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, as it sits, is who? Milwaukee Bucks. The number 2 seed, as it stands, is who?
Boston Celtics.
3 seed is our 76ers, correct?
Yes.
Unlikely that the Sixers move down to the 4th seed, right?
No. I don't believe they.
Yeah, they've got a 2.5 game lead on the 4th spot with 3 games to go. Cleveland only has 2 games to go in the 4th spot. So they'd have to lose out and Cleveland would have to win out. And then you end up in a tie. They're not going into the 4th. They're not going to the 4th seed.
No.
Milwaukee clinched the number 1.
Yep.
So, second round matchup against Boston. I would have rather played Milwaukee in the second round.
No, I understand.
I don't like the way the Sixers match up against the Boston Celtics, and I absolutely would not be surprised to see them lose in the second round again, which brings up lots of questions like, does Harden stay? Does Embiid ask out? And do you have to start over? I tell you about asking me these questions.
No. I think I don't feel very comfortable. I don't feel very confident in Sixers versus Celtics because I feel like the strength of the Celtics,
the perimeter.
Yes.
Let's call it what it is. The Sixers perimeter defense stinks.
The Sixers perimeter defense stinks, and when you think about,
and you have Marcus Smart, Celtics, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown will abuse the Sixers perimeter.
Yes,
and they actually can defend. And they can actually defend decently themselves.
They can defend decently themselves, and I feel like they can abuse the Sixers worse than Joel Embiid can abuse the Celtics, because the Celtics have no answer for Embiid.
Because what you just said, you said Embiid abused the Celtics.
Yep.
And then you said the Celtics, plural, abused the Sixers.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that's why I don't like the matchup.
Yep. Yep.
So I won't say it's impossible for the Sixers to win. You have a guy that dominant, that unstoppable. You've got a puncher's chance.
Yeah. Joel Embiid would have to have the series of his life against the Boston Celtics.
I said
beat the Boston Celtics.
I told a friend of mine a week ago that if Embiid can be, reach his full potential, run end to end on change of possessions, and essentially turn himself into Shaq Olajuwon, then the Sixers can win.
Not Shaq Olajuwon.
Mm-hmm. Shaquille Olajuwon could lead the Sixers to a victory.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And, Embiid at his full potential is that. He's as physically dominant and imposing as Shaquille was. And he's got the skill set and touch that Olajuwon had. He's got to put it all together. Got to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, the most important thing is he can't be lazy. He's got to change ends, play hard, be the first one in the paint. You don't got to stay there, but you got to be the first one there.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, this is setting up to be probably the biggest should we blow it all up off season for the Sixers in a long time.
Well, if Harden decides to leave, that's not really much of a question. The answer is yes.
No, I understand, and we can have that conversation later.
Yeah, that's another conversation. But yeah,
but
if they lose to the Celtics or whoever or anybody in the second round,
but here's the thing:
those questions are coming.
At the third seed, you're looking at a first round matchup with Brooklyn, where we're going to get upfront and personal. We're going to get upfront and personal. We're going to get at least 4 to 7 games of Mikal Bridges.
Sixers should draft somebody like him.
Yes.
Sixers should draft somebody just like him. He'd be a perfect fit.
So when you sit here and we know that Bridges is motivated, Bridges is probably.
Did you know he got Player of the Month last month in the Eastern Conference?
You know that guy.
Did you know that?
You know that guy. I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole, but you know that guy is licking his chops to get national TV games against the team, his hometown team that drafted him and then shipped him out the same day.
For a guy that's not in the league anymore.
So
they traded him for Zaire Smith.
Zaire Smith pumped my gas last week.
When's the last time you heard somebody say the name Zaire Smith?
Zaire Smith bagged my groceries last week. But nonetheless, you sit here and this is going to be let's see, real quick. Javon asked, who on Brooklyn is going to stop Embiid? Nobody. All I'm saying, I'm not saying that the Sixers would have to.
We're talking about we're talking about them losing.
The Sixers would have to absolutely fall apart to lose to the to Brooklyn. But what I'm saying is, you're going to see Mikal Bridges have a coming out party, only to beat him, move on to the Celtics, and lose because you don't have a player like Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is going to be bad. You're going to sit here and watch. You're going to watch Mikal Bridges become a star.
So you'll be well familiar with his game.
Yes.
When you get to the next round,
the Sixers
and wish, I wish I had Mikal Bridges to throw on Jason Tatum.
Yeah,
I wish I had somebody like that to guard Tatum and Brown. That would be nice.
Bottom line is, I fully expect the Philadelphia 76ers to beat the Brooklyn Nets. For some reason, the Sixers lose to the Nets in the first round, Doc Rivers shouldn't even be allowed in the locker room after the game.
If they lose to the Nets in the first round, it's not really a question. You blow the whole thing up.
Yeah, definitely. You remember this past last college football season where it looked like that video? It looked like Herm Edwards got fired on the field. That's what they should do to Doc Rivers if they lose to the Nets. You see Josh Harris, and you see, in fact, you know what? Because Daryl Morey should go too. You should see Josh
for anybody
Harris
listening, let's be clear. We're talking about second round matchups because in the Eastern Conference this year, it's pretty much assumed by most people who follow the sport and following what's going on that the top 3 seeds in the East are the clear superior teams to the rest of the conference.
You could even say the top 4 teams. I would say
no, you can't.
I would. You
can't.
You're not believing in Cleveland?
No, Cleveland doesn't make it to that level of the other teams.
Okay.
Too young, too inexperienced, and their best player actually likes to play hero ball. They're not on the level of the other teams.
Okay. Fair enough.
Young, talented, fun to watch. Best player plays hero ball. He's an undersized 2 that can't guard his position. That team's got holes.
Okay. All right. Fine. Well, we'll leave that for the Cleveland podcast. But nonetheless, I believe, unfortunately, I see another second round exit, and
I'd have felt better about their chances if Boston would have ended up as the 1 seed and Milwaukee was in the 2 spot. I like that matchup better, and I've been saying that for most of the year. At this point, it really came down to matchups for me. If it was Sixers versus Milwaukee in the second round, I'd feel much, much better. I just don't like that matchup with Boston. The perimeter defense the Sixers have lacked all year, I think will come back to bite them.
All right. Well, we'll definitely get into more Sixers in the coming weeks. Because we really.
We're gearing up for the playoff run. The play-in tournament starts next week. First round starts next weekend. We're there.
Play-in tournaments suck. I'm now against them all.
All right,
but
before we get out of here, we've now at this point seen 2 16 seeds in history win in the NCAA tournament. Will you concede at this point that if a team, even though they're in that first 4 in that first round, if they're in the tournament, they're not even 16 seeds most of the time?
No.
You win that game, you're usually a 13 seed or something.
No.
You're supposed to be better than the teams that have won.
First 4 is trash. First 4 will always be trash. It's the worst part about what is something that is completely awesome.
I didn't say it's not trash. I said it's part of the tournament. That's all I said.
Well, I would say that you would have a better argument if the 2 16 seeds that have won tournament games came from the first
from the play-in.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying by the seeding, those first 4 teams usually end up as like 11s and 13s and such.
Yeah,
and they tend up getting actually ranked higher and getting perceived as better teams than some of these 16s.
Yeah. I think to me, why do you do
like some of those 16s are from terrible conferences that just have to get somebody in.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's like, to me, it's like, okay, that's their role.
Mm-hmm.
And now
the rule is that conference has to get somebody in.
Well,
they're a terrible team, but
goodness, now I can't, because I've already moved on from the March Madness app off my phone. It's already been removed from my phone for another off season. So someone had asked me, Javon asked, did Fairleigh Dickinson play in the first 4? I don't know.
No,
I don't know, and I don't feel like looking.
No, they didn't. That's my point. Like, the teams from the first 4 usually end up being higher seeds than the 16 seeds.
Well, I'm saying that. Well, that's the new.
Like, the teams that came out that first day moved into the next round, where you're as round of 64 as higher seeds than Fairleigh Dickinson.
The first 4. There are 2 games between. There are 2 different games between 2 different teams fighting to be a 16 seed.
But that's the thing. They're not fighting to be 16 seeds. They're fighting to be like 13 seeds.
No, but what I'm saying,
They don't get in as 16 seeds for the play-in tournament.
No.
You want them to be the 16.
No, what I'm saying, when 2 teams end up 16 and then 2 teams end up 11 in the first 4. It's half and half. And what I'm saying is it should be, instead of doing that, it should be the last 4 in versus the last 4 out, and you all play for 11 seeds. You're playing for an 11 seed in each region.
Okay.
That's
or maybe a 14 or 15 seed, something.
No. If you win your conference tournament, you earned that 16 seed and that cookie you get from the number 1 seed.
That's the thing though. It's like you won your conference tournament. Let's talk like some of these 16 seeds. They'll win their conference tournament. Yeah, they're gotta get in. Yeah. But their conference was trash and they won like 18 games. They're a 16 seed. You're in. But some of these other teams that might end up in the play-in, they might be 20, 21 teams from tougher conferences.
I will put it to you this way. I'll put it to you like take Texas Southern.
Okay.
Did not win their regular season.
Right.
But they lost. But they won their tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they weren't even 500. Like they might have been a 13-win team.
That's a 16 seed.
That's a 16 seed. You should have to play to earn that 16 seed. You got your 16 seed. Take your 16 seed. Take the 16 seed L that comes with it. Don't make them play to be a 16 seed. That's not entertaining. I don't need to see that.
How many games are you watching on Tuesday anyway? How many of those?
No.
How many? You talking about you don't need to see it? How many Tuesday games are you watching anyway? Are you watching any Tuesday game? Are you watching any Tuesday games right now? No.
No, because I hate the first 4.
So it doesn't change anything. So it doesn't change anything. It's still games you're not watching.
NCAA, listen to me.
It'd still be 2 games you're not watching.
The last 4 in versus the first 4 out.
You still wouldn't be watching.
I would watch. I would watch.
You would.
I would.
You'd be like, because you'd be looking at these are all 4 teams. These are all teams that are going to be gone on Thursday. That's how you'd be looking at it.
No, because those teams that play for the higher seed, that's where you got the LaSalle's from when the LaSalle went on that run with the Southwest Philly floater, that VCU team with that Shaka, where we first got introduced to Shaka Smart and VCU. That's where you found them in the first 4 when they were playing for that 11 seed and they were able to.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 11s and 15s, not 11s and 16s that they. I think it's 16s. Like, it's you sure? I think it's 15s.
You got Javon. Thank you to Javon Alford, because that man's watched this entire show. This is an hour and 15 minutes. This man's been here for the beginning. I love that, brother. He asked, would I be a fan of the first 4 if Morgan State was in it? If Morgan State was in it, playing for a 16 seed, I would absolutely watch on Tuesday and still be mad that they're. In fact, it would make me angrier if Morgan won. Now, I will say this: it's been a couple years now. The 2 years straight that Morgan went to the tournament, they won the regular season and their conference tournament, and ended up being a 15 seed,
and
didn't have to play in the first 4. Because one year they played West Virginia and just got cooked. And then another year they played Blake Griffin in his last year at Oklahoma and got cooked. But so if Morgan was in the first 4, I would watch, but I would not be a fan. It would make me even angrier.
Would you tell your kids Morgan made the tournament?
Yes. Because they did. They made the trash.
And for the last 3 years, you've been arguing with me that those weren't tournament games.
And you've been arguing with that it is. It sucks. They would hear every.
So you're admitting I was right then. I'm cool with it.
That it's tournament games? No. Yes. Yeah, you're right. That that
it's a tournament
that they
game.
are tournament games, but
okay, they
they're
stink.
still trash.
I'm fine with that. I think we finally reached agreement on this.
No,
they're tournament games that stink.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. That's why this show is an hour and 15 minutes. That's why we're not on any network shows. That's why we haven't been picked up by any radio stations, because we can't adhere to a time limit. That's why. Because we come in here, we say we're going to talk Phillies, Sixers, and Eagles. We spend 50 minutes on the Eagles.
And 25 on the
25. 25 on the Sixers?
Well, 20 on the Sixers and
5 on the Sixers and 5 on
March Madness. And that's over.
And we didn't even talk about the actual national championship game. We didn't talk about the controversy of Caitlin Clark and age.
All right. I was going to leave that alone.
Okay.
But you brought it up, so let's go 4 minutes before we get out of here.
Okay.
Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Mm-hmm. JB, you know me.
Yes.
You know I like to compete.
Yes.
You know I love my sports.
Yes.
And you know I absolutely have fun talking trash.
Yes.
Anybody who's ever been on the court with me knows I like talking trash.
Yes, you do.
And I have absolutely no problem with anyone on the court talking trash as long as it's in reference to the game. Mm-hmm. If I'm talking about your jump shot being broke, cool. If I'm telling you your handle is trash, fair game. Mm-hmm. If I say you can't guard me, your feet are too slow, that's part of the game.
What about the hand? You're too small. When they put the hand down at the ground,
you're too small to guard me.
Yep.
I was playing a pickup game in college one time, and they summer ball, mm-hmm. high school kid who could play was in the gym playing with us, mm-hmm. and high school kid could play, but less time in the weight room, no grown man strength, all mm-hmm. game long. Swing me the rock. He's too small.
You saying that about you?
I was saying this about him.
Oh, okay.
All game long. He's too small. He's too slow. He can't guard me. I'm yelling it for the whole mm-hmm. for everybody to hear. Yeah. And it's not even like I'm talking trash. I'm literally saying this to my teammates so they keep giving me the ball. Yeah. It sounds like trash talk, mm-hmm. but it's really part of the game. He's too small. Swing rock. Ask Charles Barkley when he had little man guard him. Mouse in the house. Mm-hmm. You say it. It's part of the game.
Or Shaquille O'Neal.
Now, if you start talking about somebody's
barbecue chicken,
mm-hmm, you start talking about somebody's wife and kids and things like that. Yeah. That's off limits. If we talking ball, I'm good with it. Mm-hmm. I'm good with Caitlin Clark doing it. I'm good with Angel Reese doing it. Yes. I'm good with it.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Anybody who doesn't like it, it's one of two things. You're an old fuddy-duddy who doesn't like fun in basketball.
He just called somebody a fuddy-duddy.
Yes, you're an old fuddy-duddy who doesn't like fun in basketball, or you were one of the people who was cool when Caitlin did it but had beef when Angel did it. Mm-hmm. No. It's one or the other. You just because there are some fuddy-duddies who just don't like anybody to have fun, and it wasn't about race for them. But there's a nice segment where it's about race too. Yeah. Here's what I want to ask you before we get out of here, because I have a feeling we feel pretty similar on that one.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to ask you: how do you feel about your first lady saying she wants Iowa at the first White House too?
Okay.
How you feel about that?
Okay. Let me get to that. First off, you are right. As far as the trash talking goes, we're pretty much on the same page. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm concerned, Caitlin Clark is not the problem.
No, she's not the problem.
She is not the problem. She was talking.
And I don't want anyone to frame it like it's Caitlin Clark causing a problem. She's been wonderful through all this.
This really is not Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese.
Not at all.
And to me, making it that takes away from the fact that was a really good game.
Absolutely.
That was a really good game. Now, that being said, I will say this about the first lady. I think we live in a society that does not tend to give out the benefit of the doubt. Dr. Joe Biden is not a sports fan. I think Dr. Joe Biden is more of a fan of women's empowerment. I think she's not familiar with the whole trash talking thing, whatever you want to call it. I think she was thinking out loud and came up with a really bad idea.
So
hold on. Let me finish my point.
Okay.
I think she saw it as people pitting Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark and said, "Hey, instead of having these two girls pitting up, we just had a great game."
You realized it was a competition, right?
Yeah.
It is literally one versus the other.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, let's see, because I think your wife's a sport. Hold on, real quick. Your wife's a sports fan, or at least has a working knowledge of sports.
Mm-hmm.
Same here with my wife. It's like my wife is a sports fan.
Okay.
So it's not like you're sitting here when you're watching a game with your spouse and you have to explain the game to them as you're watching.
Right.
So, but there are people who do.
Mm-hmm.
I envision Dr. Joe Biden being one of them people. Like, doesn't necessarily understand what she's watching. She just knows that this is a big game. This is a big moment, and she sees the general public divided over this issue, and she says, "Hey, why don't we just invite them all?" And you being a competitor, me being a competitor, us being people who know sports, we're like, that's a dumb idea. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. And that's exactly why President Biden, who is a sports fan, was like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that."
All right. How many years was Joe Biden the vice president?
8.
And he's been president. This is going into his 3rd year.
3rd year, yes.
2 completed so far.
Yes.
So she's been around while her husband has completed 10 years of working in the West Wing in the White House.
Yeah.
This ain't her first rodeo. Ain't her first rodeo,
but this is
she knows.
Ain't her first rodeo, but let me point out.
Hold on.
No, hold on.
She knows that it's the winners that come.
Not her first rodeo, but also probably the first time in this presidency that you're now talking about bringing a team to the White House because the term started in COVID.
Mm-hmm. True. Not her first rodeo. She knows. Nothing else. There's a long history of winners being honored by showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And she decides in this moment, this is the time to bring up, let's start inviting losers too. Once again, hold on, hear me out. You don't have to understand sports to understand winning and losing.
No, I understand. And I don't think she thought. I think this was, once again, thinking out loud with a bad idea. That's what I think this was. I don't think this was necessarily participation trophies because people love to throw that out there.
Best case scenario, it's a participation trophy.
No, it's not. I think it was a bad idea.
To give her a participation trophy.
No, I don't think
you want to reward her for losing.
I don't.
She showed up and competed without winning.
I thought she thought that this was, and she thought that this was. Well, you know what? Do you remember early in the Obama presidency when Professor Skip Gates was arrested for basically breaking into
Beergate?
Huh?
Talking about when that Beergate, when they sat down, had a beer.
Yeah. When people turned that incident into the community versus the police, And President Obama said, "Hey, why don't you both come down and we'll have a beer and we'll hash this out."
That ain't sports.
I understand that, but
we're talking about
we're not.
What we're talking about, right? Hold on.
We're not talking about sports. No, you hold up for a second.
Time out.
There is no timeout. This is not sports. That's not what she's talking about.
John, but you're time out. Oh, hold on. Because she said at a sporting event that the loser of the sporting event should get the same reward as the winner of the sporting event. You can frame it however you want. Obama and the professor and the cop were talking about real life. We're talking about giving an award to the loser of a sporting event. Time out. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Keep doing it.
I want 10 seconds. I want 10 seconds to finish the thought. What we are literally talking about by definition is a participation trophy. You're giving an award to someone for showing up, not for winning. That is the participation trophy. Best case scenario, that's what it is. That's the definition of participation trophy. I'm done.
No, it is not in this particular case. And I am going to take 10 seconds to explain to you why you are wrong. I do not think that Dr. Jill Biden was thinking about it in that context when she made that suggestion. She saw a public discourse and an opportunity to address that discourse. And in that idea that she suggested, it presents itself as a participation trophy. So like I said, she's thinking out loud of a way to address this public discourse that ends up being a bad idea. And that's why let me finish.
I'm listening.
I sat here.
I'm listening.
That is why the president, who actually makes these decisions, was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Now, I'm saying, you want to say, yeah, you know what? This is not her first rodeo, but any sports fan who is related, who has a wife or a sibling or a friend who is not as avid a sports fan as them, know you can explain this to them a million times. And every time they watch a game with you, it's like the first time.
I agree. But we're not talking about the rules of the game. No, we're not talking about understanding the sport. We're talking about.
Should not be. Then it should. You're right. It should.
What we're talking about
should not be hard. But what we're talking that this was a bad idea.
What we're talking about is the award, the recognition that for many years, traditionally, is only for winners.
That's all it was.
Like trophies for a long time when you and me were kids.
It's a bad idea made by someone who doesn't make the decision.
When you and I were kids,
yes,
right? Who were trophies for?
You're overthinking this.
When you and I were kids, trophies
were for the winners. You're overthinking this.
And then
overthinking this.
Oh, I'm not, because this is where participation trophies came from.
It has nothing to do with participation trophies. This is a bad idea. It was she made a bad idea and misspoke.
It was a bad idea. You know what else was bad idea? Participation trophies. It's the same bad idea. Take the people and lose and give them some recognition so they don't feel bad about what happened. That's what she wanted to do, right?
No, she wanted to address the public discourse that was Angel Reese versus.
That's not what she said. She said this was a great game. Can't we invite them all to the White House? She wasn't talking about the discourse. She said it was a great game. Can't we invite them all?
You're overthinking it. She made a bad idea.
You're overthinking it. You're adding layers to it that's beyond what she said.
She made a bad idea. She made it.
I'm going based on simply. We agree it's a bad idea.
Please,
I'm going based simply on what she said.
People whine about these participation trophies all the time.
I hate participation trophies.
But the problem is, it's so subjective. You can make that about almost anything. There are people who sit here and talk about participation trophies in church, in sports, who then give them away and a million other things in life. What I'm saying is, yeah, you know what? If you want to make this about participation trophies, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, but it's like it's BS. She made a bad idea. In the end, I was not invited.
What other?
In the end, I was not invited. They're not coming.
Okay.
The man who made the decision said, "Nah, we're not doing this." I was cool with that.
I have a question.
Happens.
Because you just made an analogy where you said people don't like participation trophies, but do it on every other aspect of life. What other aspect of life do you get a participation trophy for?
What I'm saying is,
no, because you just said it. What other aspect of life doesn't happen?
Stop asking me questions and cut me off after the second word. Because that's what you do. You ask me a question, then cut me off right after the second word. You say, "Hey, John, what about this?"
Because you're going somewhere other than the question I asked. I asked a simple question.
How do you know that after the second word?
It's a simple question.
How do you know that after the second word? Then let me answer. It's a simple question. It's a simple answer. What I'm saying is, we live in a society where people say that, you know what, no one can be wrong. Everybody can be right.
This is why I say you're not answering my question. The simple question I asked: what other aspect of life do people get participation trophies?
Every aspect of life.
Name
whether
one.
It's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's music, whether it's religion, it does not matter. Any aspect of life, pick one.
You get participation trophies?
You get yes. Where you can get a part. Yes, in politics, people will talk about everyone can be right. In religion, everyone can be right. In music, everyone can be right. Is that not true? That's a yes or no question.
Those are not.
Is that not true?
Those are not participation trophies. And no, it's not true. Politics, people say everybody can be right. Our country is as divided as ever because no one says everyone else is right. No one thinks everyone can be right in politics. It's I'm right and you're wrong.
But yet,
that's what politics is.
But yet, the fact of the matter is, we sit here and we operate because everybody can be right. Yes, I can be right. You can be wrong. I can think one thing. You can think another thing. Everyone's right. That's it. So to me, in the end, it's like, look, you know, she came up with it was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad idea. She's thinking out like, hey, you know what? She's thinking of a way to try and resolve this issue. It's like, all right, no.
What issue was she trying to resolve? What issue was she looking to resolve?
The issue was people making this about Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. Two sides. Hey, the discourse between Angel Reese was Angel out of line for what she did, and the attention that their exchange took away from a great national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem. So she said, "Hey, why can't they all come?" Bad idea. Bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it's not happening. The man who actually makes the decision, the man who actually extends the invitation was like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Now, to be clear, I was not suggesting that the first lady was making this about race. I know a lot of people have brought that. I know I didn't say you brought it up. Mm-hmm. I'm just being clear here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying she was saying, "Oh, the black girls won. Let's invite the white girls too." Mm-hmm. I heard that take. That's not where I'm going with it. Mm-hmm. I'm simply saying it's a participation trophy, and I hate those. That's my point. I hate those in any walk of life. You were a third grader and you lose in a track meet. You're not getting a trophy from me.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't believe in those.
It's fine.
It's a bad idea. That's like fine. You said, it's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea. I hear what you're saying. I think the debate against participation trophies are overrated. Not saying that I necessarily disagree with your sentiment. I think people put too much emphasis and people want to make anything a participation trophy. I think we're getting to the point where, you know, now if you tell runner-up they did a good job, you're giving them a participation trophy. I think this was a bad idea.
And that's what I mean. Like, if she comes out and says it was a great game, they both competed hard and deserve respect, fine, leave it there. But when you move into the realm,
This is the point that you seem to struggle to grasp.
Oh, I'm not struggling to grasp anything.
No,
I'm not struggling to grasp anything
because we haven't moved into any realm. We asked the opinion of someone who was not.
You were talking about me cutting you off. You cut me off. Talking about we haven't moved into the JB. You cut me off. Talking about we haven't moved into any realm. You didn't even let me finish that statement. You're responding to an incomplete statement.
Okay.
What I was saying is she moved into the realm where she went from acknowledging that girls played hard to wanting to give a reward, a winner's reward, to a team that lost. The White House visit is a winner's reward. True or false?
Yes.
And she wants to give the winner's reward to the loser. True or false?
That's true.
Participation trophy.
Who is she?
The first lady.
Who is she? Who is she?
Lady.
Does the first lady make that call? Yes or no?
No,
I'm asking you. I'm asking you.
I answered you. I answered you 3 times. So I never said she makes that call.
But what I am saying is the fact that someone who does not make that call has that opinion does not bother me. I would have more.
You're saying that as though the first lady's opinion is a standard a non-influential opinion. The first lady's opinion, it holds a little different weight than somebody else's opinion.
Her husband said no.
You're right. He did.
Her husband said no. So no, it doesn't. So in this particular case, no, it doesn't. No.
Then respectfully, she should have stayed out of it.
She was asked the question. She answered.
She was asked, should they come to the White House?
She threw out.
She volunteered that.
She had an idea. She threw out an idea. It was bad. Thinking out loud, had a bad idea.
JB,
nothing more, nothing less.
JB, you work in network television. Yep. You have ideas all the time that you know when to keep to yourself, don't you?
I keep them all to myself because they don't pay me for my ideas. But nonetheless,
and she don't get paid for hers.
I'm not the first lady.
She don't get paid to talk sports. You got to know when to keep it to yourself.
She wasn't paid. She gave her opinion.
I'm just saying, know when to keep it to yourself.
She gave her opinion. So what? She's not the decision maker. Why does it bother you? A person who we sit here.
How long have you known me?
How
long have you known me,
bro?
What have you heard a dumb idea not bother me?
When you start talking about the first 4,
I don't have beef with the first lady. I have beef with the idea.
Making a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be. First lady said.
Only reason it turned into a big deal is you tried to convince me it's not a participation trophy.
Saying it's a stupid.
That's what got me excited.
Participation
you try to convince me.
Debates are stupid.
You're trying to convince
they're stupid, and they're usually led by people who didn't win. People who want to win but didn't win.
Those are the people who get participation trophies.
Yeah, and they're sick of it. They're mad. They're like, hey, it's whatever. It's like, look, a person who didn't make the decision, a non-decision maker. This is a non-factor. This is like, okay, this was just a bad idea. That's all it was. A bad idea from someone thinking out loud. I don't need a dissipation about participation trophies. I don't need that. Bottom line is it was like, look, Dr. Biden said, hey, why can't they both come? Like, yeah, that's a bad idea.
Do you have a secret
discussion?
Do you have a secret trophy room full of participation awards?
No, what I'm saying.
You sure?
No, but what I'm saying is like the fact that this bothers you so much, the fact that you're so offended by this, that's funny because it's like you're sitting up here. It's like really. Like this is really a problem for you. Like
this
is a bad idea. Because don't give me, please don't give me the downfall of society.
No, that's not what I'm giving you. JB, seriously. I used to coach youth. Participation trophies is one of the worst things I've ever seen happen to them. It is. It's bad.
Bro. I coach you too.
I think personally, I personally think participation trophies are bad for youth sports.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. The youth I coach, there are worse things that happen than participation trophies.
You know why? The reason I say it, youth sports, most kids have no aspirations of going play in pro sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
The large majority of them never will. But what they can get from it is life lessons on how to work hard, how to be a team, how to deal with things like loss.
You and I are not fighting the same battle because I am not fighting for participation trophies. I'm fighting not to sweat this bad answer that this woman gave.
I just hate participation trophies. They always make me mad.
The fact that it makes you mad, it just proves my point, because it's like, this was a bad idea. She came up with a bad idea. I was over it within a second.
It was a terrible idea.
Okay. I don't need lectures on participation trophies. I don't need people to sit up here and talk about why participation trophies are so bad for our youth. Woman just came up with a bad idea. I thought it was a bad idea. I kept it moving.
Okay, that's fine. Last question, then we could go. Do you realize it wouldn't have turned into any of this if you hadn't told me it was not a participation trophy?
It's a bad idea. I don't care. It was a bad idea. You making this into an issue about participation trophies. You felt like you wanted to argue participation trophies.
It only turned into an argument because you told me
it turned into an argument because you want to argue participation
trophies. It told me an argument.
It was an argument because you wanted to argue about participation trophies because it bothers so many people on so many levels. And I think that whole argument is stupid. I do. And that's not because I believe in participation trophies. I think I have yet to hear someone make their claim for why it's so bad that makes it seem like it is as bad as people make it out to be. Dude, it's almost 9 o'clock.
Do you think it's good for children to learn how to accept dealing with loss, or do you think it's good for them to learn to just deal? You said no, you've never heard. Didn't you just tell me you've never heard any?
This is too much.
See, this is a disingenuous argument. JB, it's absolute. If you tell someone you've never heard an argument, and then the second someone tries to make the argument, you start talking about you don't want to. You talk about no. Hear what you just said. You said you never heard it, and then when you start to hear it, you say you don't want to hear it. I've heard it before. Which one is it? That's why I said it's disingenuous.
Are you saying you're making an argument that you have not made before? This is not the same thing that you've said for the last 40 minutes.
Did you just said you never heard an argument for it, and then when I make the argument, you say you've heard it before. That's what I said was disingenuous.
But you're saying that I've never heard this argument before. I'm asking you.
You said you never heard it. Yes. You said you never heard it.
Saying that you.
And then when I started
this argument.
Well, you said you never heard it, so I started to make it. Right? That was how it went. You said you never heard it. I make it. And then you say, I've been making it, you've heard it. And that's why I said it's a disingenuous argument. You see that, right? You have to be able to see that. Okay. Like, come on. I love you, man, but you got to be able to see that one. You can't move the goalposts. Say it's not. You said you never heard it.
Listen, so but you're saying, I said I never heard it. And then now you're trying to say that you're saying that I said I never heard it. So when I started to explain it, and then you said I've heard it. But what I'm saying is, you're acting like we have not been talking about this for a half an hour?
Then why would you say you've never heard an argument for it?
What I'm saying is, I disagree with your statement. What I'm saying is, that's not disingenuous. I'm saying I don't believe it. I don't believe in a half hour, and I'm not going to spend another half hour having this conversation. I'm saying no. You made your point. I understand. I disagree. I don't think that you've made your case. I don't think that people's rally against participation trophy. I think it overstates things. I understand what they're saying. I hear you. I just disagree. And I think people are just this is an argument that people are just rushing to have. I think this was, as far as how we started this argument, things was just a bad idea from a woman thinking out loud who really doesn't have a say in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it transposed. So, I'm not interested in arguing participation trophies tonight. Javon says, cut this segment and throw this joint on YouTube. It's already on YouTube. It's on YouTube, right? You're watching on YouTube. But Look, man, I don't care. I didn't vote for Dr. Jill Biden.
I didn't ask you to care. I don't care if you care.
Man, bottom line is, hey, she had a bad idea. Whatever.
I agree. It was a bad idea. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's funny to me.
Just different.
It's funny to me, and I'm laughing because the only thing I was arguing was you saying it's not a participation award. And I knew I could get under your skin by arguing that.
No, but
because it was absolutely a participation award, and I just had fun the last half hour getting under your skin.
No, I mean it was cool, but the fact of the matter is, it's like but equally, it's like as you sit here and you've tried to make this argument over and over, it's like the fact that I'm like, look, it still doesn't change anything. It doesn't change how I feel. You said it was you're mad. I said it was
I said it's a. You said it wasn't, and I said it was. That's the only thing we actually argued about.
Yeah, you said it wasn't. I said it wasn't because I'm saying it's just a bad idea. You chose that.
I just say it's both.
Yeah,
I say it's both. Yes, I wanted to argue.
I understand.
We had
too much. All that you can handle,
JB. We had 2 months off,
and I gave you all that you could handle.
JB, we had 2 months off. I needed this.
And look, man. Here's the thing. Look, bottom line is people who watch this, people who I grew up with, who watch this podcast, who know me, who know, it's like, look, man, I love playing basketball. I used to love playing basketball. I don't play basketball anymore. I'm fat and old. But nonetheless, I used to love playing basketball, and I was never very good at it. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I could do is talk. I talk with the best of them. You play me in basketball, you drop 40 on me and still want to fight me after the game. No. Like it was the other way around. You had a game of your life and still want to square up with me after the game. And I'll take, that's my participation trophy.
You know what? You know what my win is? Mine is winning. Winning's my reward.
That's fun. That's fun. And
I get the win. I'm happy.
I'll make you feel as unhappy with that win as possible.
Nope.
That's fine with me. Because
I care less how I win as long as I win.
I say all that to say that I did not mind. That the trash talk did not mind. I like the trash talk. I thought I'm watching the game, and as soon as I saw her hit the John
trash
Cena,
talk makes it more fun.
As soon as she hit the John, it's like, to me, it was like,
that adds a layer of excitement to me. That's fun.
When the Eagles lose, when Eagles put out good teams and then they lose, what does everybody want to do? What do all the players want to do on the other team? They want to mock the Eagles, and they want to do they want to do the bird thing,
When the Eagles get a sack, and you see all the the D linemen come with the high kick.
Yeah,
but to me, that's part of sports. I'm good with it.
Like you remember. Let me take it back. T.O.'s first year, and I'm not talking about that preseason game against
the first regular season game. Go long.
Yeah,
first play of the game.
Yeah, but I'm talking about. Because the Eagles played the Ravens twice that season. They played them in the preseason, and then they played them in the regular season. And T.O. scored that touchdown and did the Ray Lewis dance in Baltimore in their end zone while Ray was on the field.
I love it. It's part of the game.
Exactly. That's what made Angel Reese I agree.
That's what I mean. That stuff makes the game more exciting. I love it.
And that's what
and that's all I say with that. As long as we're talking about the game, I'm all for it.
Didn't call her out her name. Didn't say anything about her family. Just mocked her. And that was and I think
and for me
and let me
go ahead. Let me finish. Go ahead.
And for me, I think that's what part of my problem with the discourse. Like I looked at Keith Olbermann, a man who
I saw that.
A person I usually agree with. Who I agree with more.
And he was on his old fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
Because he was on that. Yeah. On that stuff, like it's classless no matter who does it. Like the Caitlin, because he was calling Caitlin classes for doing it the previous game.
But here's the point, and this is what, we talk about what's being disingenuous is the fact that it's not just saying both sides were doing it. It's when you say both sides were doing it. So you can sit when people were pointing out, why is it now classless when this black woman is doing it, and where it wasn't when
Caitlin was doing it, it was exciting.
Doing it, and then everyone tries to hide behind that. That's a political participation trophy.
And you know what?
Saying, both sides are doing it. And I'm saying why.
But see, here's the thing, because I agree with you completely. Go ahead, but I agree with you completely on this.
But my issue is my issue was when you do it then, like Keith and Oberman then admits it. He then admits it that, oh, I wasn't following the game. I just saw the girl, do this, and and then I hear that the other girl did it. So both sides are guilty. I'm out of it. I'm like, no, that's not cool. That's disingenuous. And to me, it was Oberman. It was the dude, the pizza reviewing guy from Barstool. And my thing was, he called her classless, and then made a video and said that this woman said Angel was stalking Caitlyn. That was the word that he used.
But here's the thing for me, like how you didn't want to have the participation trophy conversation. This is the part of the conversation I think is stupid and pointless, because you just said it yourself. Like the guys like Oberman who said that stuff also weren't watching. They weren't watching Caitlyn Clark through the tournament talking trash and doing all this stuff to everyone, black or white, all tournament long. They weren't watching when now she's trailing the whole game in the championship after running her mouth the whole time and someone talks back. That's just fair play in the game. That's why, like, I'm not even wasting much energy on that part of the conversation, because anyone who actually watched the game knows that talk is foolishness. You see what I mean? So that's the part of the conversation I'm like, why are we even talking about that? Anybody who knows competition knows trash talk happens. Anybody who watched the game knows Caitlyn Clark is the biggest trash talker in college ball right now. And when she was losing, of course, she's going to get it back. That's just whatever to me. Right? So that part of the conversation is really pointless to me. I see your point. I agree with your point. The same way you agree with me that it was a bad idea for Jill to speak, I agree with you. This was a bad idea for Oberman to speak. But I also think the conversation is a waste of time, because anybody who had that take, you know where they were. You know how they feel. You weren't watching. You're just on that other stuff. You were on that other stuff. So that point of the conversation is like, those aren't people who can be convinced. Those aren't people who are worth debating with. You know, we can debate the merits of participation trophies. Like those people, there's no point. There's no merit in debating with people who had that take. You know, that's just how I feel about that.
I understand.
Because you have a problem with basketball players talking trash. You have a problem with basketball.
No, I understand it, and they can't. Look, man, David Portnoy from Barstool. I barely want to hear him talk about pizza.
Man, I barely want to hear shut Barstool down. How they have fans?
Literally, the only two good things about Barstool is Gilly and Wallow. That's it. And quite frankly, I don't think they need Barstool anyway. They're too big they can distribute their podcast on their own. We distribute our podcast on our own.
We were supposed to be done an hour ago.
That was your fault, man.
It was.
It's all your fault.
I'll take it.
Exactly. I'm not going to share the blame with you. There's one winner, one loser. I win this one. I'm not gonna both sides this and say, hey, we were both wrong. No, we were both at fault.
I've never said that.
I
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I threw out some subtle hints to trying to end this conversation and try to end this show.
No,
this is your fault.
Yes.
You are the weakest link. You are the biggest loser.
No. But it is my fault.
It is all your fault. It's all your fault. I love you, brother.
Oh, man.
And I ain't even had nothing in the cup today. What you got there? I look like some Kool-Aid, bro.
This is some sort of tropical fruit punch.
Yeah, I just had me a Coke. That's it. Man. That's all I had today. You know, I didn't even get a chance to go back to the. I ain't even get to go back into the good cabinet today. And that shows you how long it's been. That I can give you almost 2 hours of smoke off just a can of Coke But it's all right though, man. We'll be back, and we're going to we got to track down some people, man. This is what we need to work on, because it's that time of year. Need to get Coach Ron Sizer back on the show, talk some basketball. It's almost time to get Reverend Laws back on the show. We definitely, after today's show, we need some prayer. We need a man of God on the show. After today's show, we definitely need Reverend Laws back on this show. Need to get Anthony Gilbert on, because I wanted to talk to him about the article that he had on Liberty Ballers. And definitely going to talk about that. Hopefully, I'm working on Emory Hunt.
Okay.
Talk draft. We were talking to get him on the show to talk draft last year, and things just got we just had we just couldn't get the scheduling right, and then the draft came and went. So definitely got to try and get him on before the draft. We're working on all that. You could probably see all those people on the show, or you could just see me and Jonesy next week. Either way, tell us what you think about this show. Hit us up, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Jonesy and Brown, or at BITW Sports. You can download this podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Just go to BITWsports.com. It's been a good show. It's almost 9 o'clock. We were planning for an hour, and then Jonesy decided to hijack the show and just give us another hour, and that's just what we got.
I did it.
I would give you final thoughts, but I don't have a third hour in me.
Oh, we don't have nothing left.
I got nothing left. All right, y'all. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back whenever we decide to do another show. Peace, y'all. We out.
Peace.